Have you ever known anyone who said to you, I don't need to change. I'm fine, just the way I am? And you're looking at them, and there are glaring things in them that could really use some change. They don't want to hear it. They're totally resistant to the idea of change. Yeah. Today's episode is about intentional change because changes happen to us all the time against our will. Oh my word. You know, tornadoes happen, floods happen, hurricanes happen, people die, car accidents happen, people get sick. We have a baby that isn't exactly perfect. They have autism, they have Asperger's, they have cerebral palsy. I mean, changes happen in our life we don't have any say over whatsoever. This today is about you choosing by an act of your will and an understanding of certain things to make changes. Let's talk about this. If you're a very impatient person, you probably know it. If you are a very angry person with a bad temper, you are probably aware of it. If you are a person who gossips constantly, talks about this person and this person and this person, always on the phone. Do you know so and so? They said blah, 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 blah. You know, so and so, they did this and that and this and that. Yeah, if you're a gossip, you probably know it. If you are unkind, if you are unfair, if you are unreasonable, if you're a lot of things, you probably know it. If you don't know it, someone has probably told you in the past. You may not have wanted to hear it. You may not have received it well. You might not have even believed it. But you've probably heard someone tell you at some point, you know, you really need to blah, blah, blah. In other words, change this, fix this, do something about this, or you really need to stop this, this, this. And so you probably have some idea of certain areas in your life that would require or would benefit greatly from intentional change. Now let's acknowledge this. Change is hard. Oh my word. I know very few people in the world who are like, yes, I have this opportunity to change. Really, I don't know that I've ever met anyone right out of the chute that's their response. So it's not that easy. I want to say that to you right off the bat. Sometimes when people say, I wouldn't even know where to start, I can admit that that's a real challenge, isn't it? Let's say this. Look at your family of origin. Your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, and maybe if you're kind of close to them, a couple of your aunts and uncles and some of their kids, your cousins. What do you see as a pattern within your family in that other generation is a problem? What do you see as a problem? If everybody in the whole place pretty much has a bad temper, if everyone pretty much in the whole place is impatient, if everyone pretty much in the whole place spends money like it's going out of style and never saved a penny and has lived a fiscally irresponsible life, you can probably go, I wonder if I have that. I wonder if that's a problem with me. Because it's possible that it really is. That might be an area where you really need to consider making a change. Okay? Or look at the next generation. Look at your children. Look at your brothers and sisters' children. Look at your cousins' children and see what's there. If there are a whole bunch of kids in a whole bunch of trouble, you need to look at the root cause of that and say, this might be an area that really needs significant change. This might be where I want to start. Now, there are two lines of thought here, and I'm going to tell you about both of them. One is start with the easiest thing. In many ways, I support that idea, and here's why. Because it is hard to change. If we do the easiest thing and we have certain level of success, we'll be likely to tackle the next thing and the thing after that. Okay, just so you know. So I kind of do lean in that direction that it might be easiest to tackle the easiest thing or smartest to tackle that one. Some people will say you should tackle the hardest thing. because the hardest thing is going to take longest. You might as well get started today. I would say there's an element of that that has truth to it. But then I would say if it is the hardest thing, it might be because it's the most complex, or the one with the longest duration, or the one with the greatest negative impact. If that's the case, try to break it down. Don't try to tackle it all at one time. Try to tackle the first element of that. And I'm going to give you an illustration. I already have shared with you that when I was young, I had a wicked bad temper. I have to tell you that most of the people in my family, I only know of one exception. So, of the 10 of us, 9 of us have wicked bad tempers. Of course, 5 of us are natural redheads, so we're a little fiery anyway. But my mom and my dad both had really terrible, horrible, awful bad tempers. Of my 4 grandparents, 3 of them really had a temper. Are we seeing a pattern here? Oh my gracious, I saw this and I saw this. Oh, I did over and over again. And I heard it especially. So, you know what? When I got to be an adult, I was yelling and screaming at my kids, and I would give pretty much full vent to my anger. Why not? That's what I knew. Did I like it? Not really. Had I liked it when I was a kid? No, I absolutely hated it. But I really didn't know what to do about it, to be very truthful with you. Let me tell you, I'm going to tell you a couple things I did. One, I started noticing people, like at my church, people that were my friends, people in my sphere that were patient. I started hanging out with them. I became friends with them. I watched how they lived. That was pretty powerful for me. I had watched tons of furious people and the way they lived. It seemed like a logical choice for me to watch patient people. After I watched them for a while, I literally mean that I tried to do what they did. Now, here was the faulty reasoning behind that. I hadn't really dealt with my internal anger, so though I could look patient, there was still this storm raging inside of me. Now, I grant you that people outside of me probably benefited, but I personally did not. So I'm just saying to you that parts of change are helpful to someone else and maybe not to you. And parts of change are manageable, but maybe not as effective as you want them to be. I'm really telling you the deal of how it went, okay? I have a sister who learned to control her temper more, and I asked her how it happened. And so she had the negative end of it. She said by the fact that she was always in trouble at work, she was always in trouble with her friends. In other words, the negative side of that compelled her to knock it off. Okay, because of all the implications of what her temper was doing for her when she would just explode and yell and scream and cuss at people. And so, whether you take the positive or the negative side, both of them brought about a certain level of change. Now, I am going to tell you, and you don't have to agree with me or acknowledge that what I'm saying is real, and I respect that, but I still have to tell you what really happened to me. I learned that there are 2 kinds of people: people who become angry and people who are fearful. At the very root of their life, something is driving them. And I recognized I'm an angry person, and most of the people in my family were all angry people. And the solution was to admit how wrong that was, how offensive that was to other people. And when I allowed that anger to lead me to do wrong things, how offensive those wrong things were to God. So I needed to admit to myself and to God that my anger often led me to do wicked stuff. Yell and scream and cuss at my kids, and sometimes smack my kids. Really not okay stuff. And I needed to cut that out. So admitting what's going on is the first step for sure. And then saying, okay, so when I go to blab it all over the place or act really badly, I catch myself. I say, no, this is not how I'm going to act. This is not how I'm going to talk. This isn't even how I'm going to think. Okay, so you see those steps there, and so you have to really start managing some part of that. My part of that was just to shut my mouth, stop what I was doing, because often it flew out of my mouth. And my hands. I learned, you know, to take my hands back, not to do anything ridiculous with my hands just because I was upset. I used that illustration for you. And if you don't have a temper, you'd be like, well, I don't have a temper. I don't know why you're talking so much about that. Because the principle is the same. Whatever needs to change, you've got to see it and acknowledge it, admit to yourself what's going on. You have to determine that it's going to require some kind of action, and you have to find out what actions you're going to take that are going to work for you. Okay? So we'll say that you're a person who spends money like it's going out of style. You're always broke. You never have enough. You constantly have a spirit that is discontent, and you hate it. And you don't need to keep doing this, and you definitely don't need to teach this to your child by modeling it in front of them. So, first of all, you stop carrying your debit card with you. You give yourself 20 bucks in cash. That's all you got. You don't have a credit card. I mean, you don't have anything else. That's the only thing you get to spend. You go to the grocery store and you usually spend 120 bucks a week on groceries, but you buy all this junk food and whatever. Then you put $100 into your wallet that you went to the bank and got out with a debit card or however you do it, and everything else stays home. You got 100 bucks. That's what you got. Oh, and you have a list, and you have a list that's prioritized. So you buy what's on that list. When you get to $100, you are finished. Same thing when you go to buy shoes, or you go to buy clothes, or you go to buy whatever you're going to buy. Yeah, you change that thing by grabbing a hold of it and not giving yourself another option so that you can go blow money and justify it and defend it and, oh, I'll deal with this later. I mean, if you have a problem, then you've got to get a hold of it and make intentional change. We've talked a lot about changing things with yourself, and now we're going to talk just for a few minutes about changing things as a parent. If you are always giving in to your child because they whine and cry and pitch a fit, and so you just give in, give in, give in, and you know this isn't good, you know you're teaching them a lot of negative things by rewarding negative behavior. And you say, oh, this has got to change. Again, you need to acknowledge change can be difficult. And frankly, in some things, change can be painful. And this is definitely one of those areas when you have to start saying no to your child and not responding the way that you always have to their junky behavior and say, this is not how it's going to be anymore. It doesn't mean occasionally you won't mess up and give in, but in general, that the everyday behavior is, I'm not giving in to this. If you whine, if you cry, if you beg, if you go crazy, if you throw yourself on the ground and have a fit, I am not going to give you what you are asking for because I am not going to reward negative behavior any longer. Yeah, that's intentional change as a parent. That can be really challenging. Okay. And if you've been kind of lazy as a parent, one of the intentional changes that you might choose to make is that you are going to work harder. You are going to use the character trait, the foundational trait of diligence in your own life to start to contribute something positive into your child's. And that means you're going to expend effort for their well being and for something that's going to have long term benefit to you, to them, and to your family. So, I want to ask you today, what are you going to intentionally change? Okay, so the question you ask yourself is, what am I going to intentionally change? Because it's important for every single one of us to recognize we have faults, we have weaknesses, we have common frailties, and we need to get stronger. We need to be more effective people and more effective parents. And that may require intentional change. If you have questions, if you have comments, please let me know, and I will look forward to seeing you again soon. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.